Good morning. Today we've got Mallory Krieger with Oats, which is the Organic Agronomy Training Service. And it's my understanding that this was born out of a MOA meeting, I believe in 2018, with Joe Miranda and Anders Gerda, who recognized the fact that we have training for organic farmers, but we don't really have we're not reaching the people who can really help, and that would be extension agents, bankers, insurance agents. So this is how this organization was born, and Mallory leads it as the national director, and she will fill us in on everything that's been going on for the past year in Montana and around the country as well.
Thanks, Jamie. I also want to give a shout out to Nate Palm, who is our brand new organic grain agronomy and training specialist with Oats. We just brought him onto the team. Prior to that, he served on the Rocky Mountain West Regional Advisory Committee. And so Nate's going to be helping me out with this presentation toward the end. So I'm going to kind of deliver the main content, and then I'm going to hand it over to Nate, who's going to lead us in some discussion as a group. So I'll get my screen sharing going and dive in. So thank you all so much for having me here. As Jamie said, my name is Mallory Krieger, and I'm the National Program Director with Oats. I am based in Champaign, Illinois, but I'm currently living at my family farm in Western Illinois. My husband is an elementary school teacher, and he's teaching virtually, so it's let us get back out into the country for a little while, which I'm really happy about. So my background, as you guys can see, is from a friend of mine's farm from just down the road. That's our certified organic wheat in the foreground. So Oats was born at Montana Organic Association's conference in 2018. Anders Gerda and Joe Miranda. Anders was then with Pipeline Foods, and Joe is with the Organic Trade Association, delivered a joint presentation. And at that meeting, they got together, they wrote a funding proposal and launched the Organic Agronomy Training Series, as it was known in 2018. So I'm going to take you through a bit of history on Oats and then bring you to the present day and the programs that we're planning for the Rocky Mountain West region. And then we'll conclude with a group discussion where we really like to get to know your thoughts and desires for how Oats programming could work in the Rocky Mountain West region, as well as what you see as the needs for training of technical advisors. But a little background on why Oats came about. So back in 2018, Anders and Joe started this conversation among a group of researchers, university extension professionals, nonprofits, and farmers and industry members in the Midwestern states about this unmet need that everybody was seeing for technical service support for farmers. These universities and nonprofits were doing a lot of training for farmers, a lot of field days and conferences and resource development specifically for farmers. And every single one of us, about 30 organizations, were repeatedly hearing back in our needs assessments and evaluations that these training events were great. They were full of wonderful information, and the farmers wanted to see those continue. But there was a missing piece. Farmers were going back to their farms and looking at their unique, specific farming situation and struggling with how to put all of these pieces together in the organic grain industry. How do they put together a weed management program specifically on their farm? What crop rotation would work specifically for them? And that level of individual detail was not being met by these group learning activities like field days. Some further evidence that let the early consortium members know that there was something there that we needed to look at was a 2012 survey done by sustainablecorn.org and Useful to Usable of Midwestern corn producers that asked them what categories of individuals or groups were the most influential on the decisions that they made about their agricultural practices and strategies. And that survey found that next to family, chemical dealers, seed dealers, and consultants were the most influential categories on farmer decision making. That ranked above even their landlords and even other farmers. The U.S. Organic Grain Collaboration also noted in their 2019 report, U.S. Organic Grain, How to Keep It Growing, that their research identified that a shortage of technical service advisors with sufficient knowledge of organic practices was a major limiting factor in farmers navigating transitions successfully. With that background combined with the state of the organic grain industry in the US growing rapidly, now at $55.1 billion of organic product sales in the United States, that's up 5% over 2018 numbers. That huge domestic demand it exists alongside a large demand for imports. 70% of organic soybeans and 30% of organic corn are imported to fill that demand. So the early members of the consortium were looking at this state of affairs and said, we want to see more domestic production of organic grain to meet domestic demand. How do we do that? Well, we need to get farmers more robust access to their to technical service support. And so in 2018, we formed kind of an informal steering committee. And that steering committee did a survey of certified crop advisors in the Midwestern states in the summer of 2018. So we sent this out in partnership with ASA, sent it out to all of their Midwestern members, and 241 responded. Of that 241, 55% were advising more than 10,000 acres, which demonstrated that among that population, there was a significant opportunity for impact at the individual level. 63% of them already had clients requesting information on organics. A third of them received inquiries every couple of months or more frequently, while a third of them were receiving infrequent inquiries, maybe just a couple a year. And a full 54% of them were already advising on organic and transitional clients. But there did not exist a formal training program for crop advisors on organics. And so they were curating their own information. And a lot of times they were getting their training in the same programs where farmers were receiving training support as well. This CCA survey also showed the consortium that there was an actual demand for training programs for crop advisors on organic agronomy and production methods. 45% of the respondents said yes, they would be interested in attending a program, and 43% said maybe. And that 43% who said maybe, we had some follow-up questions that indicated it really just came down to whether it fit in their schedule and whether the format was the right fit for them. So in 2019, we launched a series of 3 pilot trainings. One was held in Bismarck, North Dakota in March, one in Crawfordsville, Indiana in July, and one in La Crosse, Wisconsin in August. We divided the core Midwestern states into 3 pilot training regions where we held 2-day in-person trainings in a conference style, where we invited subject matter experts to deliver presentations on individual topics at about 1 hour intervals. And we held a farm tour at each of these, except for the Bismarck, North Dakota one, because you can't really do a meaningful farm tour in North Dakota in March. And then we also tested whether the regions were meaningfully grouped by agronomic growing region. So we split the Midwest into these 3 regions so that we were able to tailor the content to those specific areas, because growing in Appalachian area of Ohio is very different than growing in the northern plains of North Dakota. So we wanted to group the regions into meaningful areas where we could tailor that content to be more useful for participants. At these trainings, we covered a whole host of content everything from organic certification and record keeping to writing an organic systems plan to the National Organic Program regulations and allowable and prohibited substances, all the way to agronomic methods like nutrient management, weed management, reducing tillage in organics, crop rotation, integrating cover crops, etc. We measured confidence change among our participants. So at the beginning of the training, we had them take an identical assessment to what they took at the end. And they rated their confidence on these indicators, one being not confident and 4 being very confident. And we saw a substantial increase in confidence across all learning outcomes over the 2-day period. We also asked for some comments on the evaluations from participants, and some of the highlights. As a consultant, I feel much improved on organic production concepts and methods, so as to discuss with clients. The most valuable part is growing my network of industry experts rapidly. Oats will help me field questions from farmers who are considering organic. Take this information to other agronomists across the US. Well, we listened, and we decided to form a formal program. The pilot training proved our concept that there was a demand for this training and that our approach would work. So we looked more deeply at what worked and what didn't in the pilot trainings so that we could create a program that was even more impactful and more meaningful for our target audience. What we found worked was the farm tour and the in-field components. That was repeatedly ranked the highest in terms of its usefulness to our participants. And the lessons that were conducted in the field had the highest gains in confidence. We also found that small group transition, meaning organic transition, and consulting activities were very impactful. Getting our participants together in an interactive format was very helpful. And we also found that the farmer presenters and panelists were the most impactful presenters in terms of the ratings that they received from the participants. What didn't work was our format. We had too much content in too short of a period of time. So 2 days was not enough time for the amount of content that we were trying to convey in that period. We also found that we needed more interaction and more hands-on learning in the program, and we needed more practical information and less research-oriented technical information. One specific example we received was about weed seed populations in soil. One of the participants said on the evaluation, I don't need to know whether there's 5,000 seeds per inch or 20,000 seeds per inch. If there's a seed in there, it's gonna sprout. I need to know what to do with it. So that told us that we needed much more like infield practical advice and less of that really technical information. We also needed to highlight more farmer speakers and panelists as we develop our programming. So in the fall of 2019, after we concluded our pilot trainings, we entered into a formal strategic planning process, and that lasted through the winter of 19 and 20. During that period of time, we formalized the consortium. We crafted a 3-year strategic plan for program development, and we hired myself as the national program director to lead this process. During that process, we added 2 new regional advisory committees. We took that highlight from one of our trainings to heart, take this to agronomists throughout the US. So we expanded our footprint outside of the Midwest. And we also entered into a fiscal sponsorship agreement with the Organic Trade Association. The Organic Agronomy Training Service, Oats, is a programmatically independent consortium of about 45 organizations and individuals across the country. We are governed by a national steering committee who sets all of our programming directives and manages the day-to-day operations of the consortium programmatically. And then the Organic Trade Association provides us with administrative backbone and support. They provide us with a legal entity umbrella to operate under for us to solicit funds. And they also are very instrumental in helping fundraise to promote the program. Our seed funding for the strategic planning process and for our next phase of development was provided by Grow Organic, which is a industry invested research promotion and education program run by the Organic Trade Association. So those dollars have allowed us to hire myself, hire additional contractors to develop programming, and to conduct the activities of the consortium as we develop our next round of programs. So through the strategic planning process, we identified a very clear mission. The mission of Oats is to train agricultural professionals in the practices and principles of organic crop production so that every farmer has access to science-based agronomic support. This mission drives everything that we do in the consortium. Everything we do is to aim to help farmers access science-based agronomic support through the training of agricultural professionals. We have three main programming goals that we're trying to achieve with our training activities. We want to increase the number, geographic spread, and effectiveness of agricultural professionals trained in organic production methods. We also want to increase the credibility of those agricultural professionals. And we want farmers to be able to find them and access their qualified advice. We've refined our target audience as we have developed our strategic plan, and we have two tiers of target audience. Our primary audience are agronomists, certified crop advisors, agribusiness and retail service employees, independent consultants, and university extension. These are individuals who work directly with farmers in an advisory capacity for their production, for farmers' production decision making. Our secondary audience are educators and individuals who influence farmer decision making, but don't necessarily directly advise specifically on agronomic practices. So these are entities like lenders, commodity buyers, landowners, government agencies, nonprofits, and other university activities. You'll notice that farmers are not listed in our primary nor our secondary audience. This is deliberate. Oats exists to fill a specific need of creating access to more technical advisory support for farmers. Farmers are the ultimate beneficiary of the work that we do, and we do not turn farmers away. Those who want to take our trainings are absolutely welcome. But when we are designing our training, we are designing it with that consultant and advisor in mind, so that we make the training as meaningful to that target audience as possible to grow access that farmers have to that support. We have also developed an engagement model to map how we want to develop our program over the next couple of years. This model consists of starting with agricultural professionals learning about the Oats program, enrolling in it, accessing resources that we will be putting on our website as we continue to develop and curate those resources. And eventually we aim to have a credential or certificate program available to agricultural professionals so that when they go through our training and they demonstrate sufficient and proficient knowledge of the content that we train on, that over time that Oats credential can carry meaning with farmers, that if farmers see that an agricultural professional has earned the Oats credential, that they know that they have received robust training. We also plan to create a directory of qualified agricultural professionals and place that on our website so that farmers are able to learn who is qualified in their area and how they can contact them. And eventually, as we develop this credential program, we want to have a continuing education program as well, so that credentialed agricultural professionals can continue to learn and grow their skill set. So as I mentioned before, at the close of our strategic planning process, we expanded the consortium to 2 additional regions. So we still have our 3 original core regions in the Midwest, and we've added the Mid-Atlantic region in the East and the Rocky Mountain West region, where all of you are located. So coming in 2021, we had to take a pause this year as COVID derailed our training plans. So coming out of our strategic planning process, our original programming plan for 2020 was to host 5 2-day in-person training events, 1 in each of our regions during the summer of 2020. But once the pandemic hit, we realized we were not going to be able to hold those in-person trainings. And we decided to take that opportunity to address some of the structural challenges that we identified in our pilot year with that 2-day in-person model. And so we have developed a plan for a hybrid training course where we will go out into each of our 5 regions and record video-based lessons on all of our content that we delivered in the pilot training course, and then package those video lessons into regionally adapted, targeted courses. So each region will have local, regionally adapted content to be as meaningful as possible for the participants in those individual regions. Each of the regions will then be grouped into a learning cohort, and our instructor, who is Nate Palm, will meet virtually with those cohorts for several sessions while they work through the video-based modules on their own. And then these online lessons will be brought home at 3 in-person field days that we will hold throughout the region in the summer of 2021. Our goal with the hybrid training course is to provide more space and time for our participants to take in the rich content that we have developed over our pilot training series, giving more space and time for digesting that information, and also more space and time for meaningful individual interaction. With our 2-day conference style trainings, we did not have much time for synthesizing information. And so these virtual meetings provide a space that is dedicated specifically to synthesizing information learned in the video-based modules. And then the in-person field days allow the opportunity to have our participants interact with successful farmers who are working in their region, to see a working farm, get the hands-on activities that were so meaningful in that pilot training series, and also capture the magic of an in-person event. As we all know, while we're attending so many online events right now, what we miss is what happens at lunch and what happens between sessions in the hallways and what happens at happy hour after the sessions are over. And so we want to make sure that we capture the magic of that in-person interaction by bookending the course with 3 in-person field days each summer. So the cohort will start in the summer of 2021 with these 3 in-person field day kickoffs. They'll do their online course throughout the winter, and then they're invited to come back again for the in-person events the following summer. So we'll have our outgoing training course commingling with our brand new incoming cohort in the summer of 2022. So our Rocky Mountain West region is advised by a wonderful team of members of our regional advisory committee, several of whom are on the call today. So I'd love to give a shout out to Sam and Georgiana and Jamie. And I apologize if there's anybody else on the call. I think I saw Lance on the call as well. We are so grateful to have such committed and knowledgeable advisors to help bring our training into the Rocky Mountain West. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions about the content, and then I'm going to hand it over to Nate, who will lead us in discussion. So are there any questions about what I've described about Oats so far? All right, great. Well, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nate. And Nate's going to lead us in a group discussion. So it's all yours, Nate.
Super, thank you. So I know many people on the call. For anyone that I don't know, I really got excited about this project as both an organic farmer as well as someone who knows a lot of organic farmers, and in looking at the respective ways that farmers access information. I think that there's a lot of questions that there are consistent challenges experienced by farmers growing across Montana. Weed questions, I think there's always some themes that are highlighted at every conference for everyone trying to overcome challenges in their agronomy practices. And that there's rarely ever a formal advisor who I think that folks could really put a lot of confidence in their advice as far as a formally trained agronomist. So of the folks in the room, I was hoping we could just, and I'll defer to Mallory on the tech on this, but to unmute and just a quick name, location, and what your role in agriculture is. I think that's what we'd like to accomplish here in this discussion, is trying to get some feedback on what is it about oats that you think could be useful to your corner of the industry? What about you and the folks that you work with is what information is missing, and what information would be best access, developed, provided by Oats. And so we've got groups for farmers as well as consultants. I think like Montana Milling would be a commodity buyer. So if we want to just run through, and then we might be able to break out into kind of camps for what the themes are. A big thing that we're doing is we are in early stages with building this content. And so making it and presenting it in a way that you guys think would be accessible to the community is a really big question we have. What way do we want it provided, in what makes virtual learning for the agriculture community a more accessible thing? And I realize we are all probably zoomed out at this point, and the less virtual learning we had, the better. But given our state of COVID and everything, and I don't know if my order of folks is the same as everybody else, but if we wanted to just run through, Mallory, can you think of an efficient way to have folks sound off?
Yeah, let's just call out a name or their screen name. And if let's start with introductions. If you could just say who you are, where you're located, and what your primary role in the agriculture industry is. Are you a farmer? Are you a buyer? Are you a consultant? That kind of thing, and what crop types you work with mostly. And then we'll move on to the questions after that.
So Jess, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm Jess Elger, Stanford, Montana. My primary role is, I'm a rancher and farmer put together, I guess. We have lentils and winter wheat, oats and kamut that we grew this year. Well, and cover crop. We have cow-calf operation, and then we keep the yearlings, the calves and yearlings. So we didn't get our yearlings sold last year, so we got quite a few animals around right now.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll ask this question sort of just kind of as we go, but you're a longtime organic producer and I think a mentor to a lot of people. When you were getting started out, was there a place that you in particular accessed information to ask questions about organic agronomy and overcoming challenges in your crop and livestock operation?
Well, Arrow helped me get started. Dave Owen from Timeless was one of my mentors, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. And Arrow is, I mean, I think Arrow could be considered sort of a precursor to all of this work. Arrow, a precursor to Montana Organic Association and Oats in a way. Super. All right. Thank you, Jess. Georgiana.
Good morning. So Georgiana Webster, I'm in Montana and I represent organic certification. I'm the organic program manager for the Montana Department of Agriculture. And I think what is useful about Oats is that we'll have a direct place to send people that need agronomy or extra information, because the role of a certifier, we can give them general information, but we can't consult. So this fills that gap. You know, although we point them to resources and people and producers, this is a very direct technical way to give producers a good answer to things. And I think even though the virtual learning will be overdone at a point, but this still gives producers an opportunity at their own time to be able to listen to that virtually on their schedule, which is really important. I don't think at this point there's any information that's missing. And I think that we're doing a great job, just what has been outlined for the subjects and based back to the technical people involved. You know.
Absolutely. One thing I would add to that is I think in the inspection community, there's also most certifiers can kind of provide a context for how to get certified. Either they have an education arm or something, but I've consistently across the board never found like a really good technical advisor in the organic space. It's maybe a good how do you get certified, but not necessarily how do you actually overcome your weed challenges. And so I really like that idea that, you know, certifiers kind of would have this would be sort of a tag team, a relay
right.
of expertise.
Right, because I can give people 5 different sites to go to. And when people call me with grasshopper problems, this last year, you know, I can say generally we've seen people do this, we've seen people do that, but it feels not sufficient in that way. You know, even though you give them some place, it's still not as direct, I think, or as broad in some ways as it could be. So this should work out.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's really great. Sam.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Sam Schmidt with Montana Milling. We are organic commodity processors, processing cereal grains, oil seeds, and pulse crops. I can see my role in this platform of just helping other industry folks understand how contracting works, just different programs within purchasing. Also represent Organic Advisor and Education Council, which deals with research projects to organics. So I could see that being a link, especially with the agronomy side, but just tying educators to some of these other industry people.
Awesome. And you also know and work with a lot of farmers. And I think in a way, probably folks might describe, you know, you and the other folks in the buying community as pretty important resources. And so really excited to have you involved, because I know that there's a lot of folks who have called up, you know, in this greater community, called up buyers just to try to figure out how do you overcome different challenges. So to kind of institutionalize that knowledge, I know as a grower would have been really fun, and like Georgiana was saying, having a one-stop shop. Okay, I might have to start calling out just screen names, but Jackson.
Well, hey guys, nice to see you all. I'm an organic farmer, southeastern Montana, on an irrigated farm. So I kind of feel like I have a series of problems that most of the organic community doesn't deal with. Lots of weeds coming in from Yellowstone River irrigation, etc. I feel like I'm kind of out on my own here. There's not a lot of organic farming going on. So how I get my information is I try to go to as many conferences as possible. I go to North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, lots of my own research. And I just try to be in the right place at the right time if I can. And you can't do that if you don't go anywhere.
Hashtag 2020.
Yep.
That is, yes, I think so, a common theme we've found across the board. You've been an organic producer for a while now. Have you found yourself in sort of being put in the advice giving position from other organic farmers in your area, or just kind of across the region?
No, not so much. I don't come in contact with a lot of organic farmers. When I do, it's at the MOA conference. And there's a little bit of information to give out, but I do feel like I'm in a different situation than most. A lot of this, for example, a lot of the big equipment that probably John is using, I couldn't even park some of that stuff in my fields. So it's a lot different. So I'm actually looking to these big producers and trying to figure out how to modify what they do for my smaller operation.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we'll dive into more. I think that's a huge, I mean, Mallory said it, but you know, the context of individual farms is so important, and to not have to have folks leave with a general idea of what they might be able to adapt from a conference, but actually have advice specific to their operations is really also the goal of training this cohort of agronomists. Craig Schmidt.
Yeah, I'm a farmer in northeast Montana, by Glasgow Wolf Point area. Feel a little bit like Jackson does, kind of out on my own, asking everybody I can. There are some organic farmers in the area, but they're all asking the same questions I am most of the time. So I guess I'm actually came to this looking to find places where I can go and get some consulting and somebody to come out to my farm and look through it. I've been transitioning more and more acres to organic, and I've talked to Georgiana and even Sam Schmidt, I think once, but looking for some contracts at one time. But and they're very helpful with what they can do, but I need someone to come on the farm and do this kind of thing. I mean, we have a few thousand acres of organic certified ground with lentils, wheat, different types of lentils. Timeless seeds is one of wheat, durum wheat, a little bit of hemp, and oats.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. That's definitely the idea behind this. How about John Wicks?
Yep. So I'm a farmer in Ledger, Montana. I farm legumes, grains, a little bit of oil seeds, and a lot of cover crops. We lease our grazing to neighbors, so I get some cows on the place from that. And I do some work with the county FSA, MOA, and Farmers Union, and the Egg Development Council in Helena.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Courtney Anderson.
Hey, good morning. Thank you. Obviously, my name's Courtney. I'm over here with 406 Agronomy in Glasgow, Montana. It's mostly cereals, pulses, oil crops that we work with. A lot of our clients are more conventional farmers, and we're trying to tap into that market of being more supportive to the organic community. So we're hoping that Oats can kind of help us with that.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's exciting. So you currently advise organic farmers?
Correct. If we can get a hold of them, yes.
Yes.
I know over in Havre, I believe Lance does have a couple clients over there that are organic, but it's kind of a new realm for us because it's, you know, like people are saying, it's not super common.
Yeah. Do you, where right now do your agronomists sort of access their organic education?
That's a good question. I think we rely pretty heavily on the Earth, Dirt, Soil group that used to be a part of AgriTrend based out of Canada. So kind of those questions we send out to them, and we have, you know, PhD and people with masters, you know, helping us out with those sort of questions.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. That's really helpful. I think understanding how information flows presently is something we'd really like to get a better grasp on, to tap into those existing channels and be useful to you all. Let's see. How about Sean Mulla? There he is.
How you doing?
Hey.
Yeah, I guess the main thing that drew my attention to this session of the MOA conference was I feel like Oats has been a great model for taking a lot of the research that's happening at the university level and trying to transfer it to the field, to people practicing that. And how it came into being was just really interesting story. I really appreciated that. As an inspector, I think it's important that inspectors know what they're doing and know what they're looking at. So, you know, if a farmer says that he's got a certain crop rotation, an inspector should be able to understand why that crop rotation is in place. And, you know, I think there's a lot of technical things that inspectors can learn from agronomic consultants. So that's why I'm on board here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think as an inspector, a fellow inspector, I think that's something that's always kind of sparked something for me of when we're looking at enforcing a regulation, you know, being as well versed as we can in a given crop is something that I think really helps with the integrity component to the certification. So that's a great point. And then you work with quite a few other crops, don't you?
Yeah, actually, most of my inspections are more vegetable horticultural crops, but we do have some grain producers and some oil seed producers up in the Flathead and up around St. Ignatius that I've inspected over the last few years. So
sure, yeah, awesome. I think. Oh, and then Jamie. But I didn't want to make you talk.
Yeah, I have something to say, but we had Paul. Did he disappear?
We did have Paul. I don't see him on anymore, but I might just be missing him.
Okay, he must have jumped off. First off, thanks, Mallory, for laying that out so clearly. One of the things that really sparked my interest in your graph of who farmers rely on for information. You know, I know our experience as conventional farmers in northeastern Montana was that, you know, the steak fry dinner once a year with the chemical guy, that's where decisions were made for the rest of the year. As the director for MOA, I'm looking for ways to reach a broader audience. And I would love to have steak dinners across the Highline, but that's not going to happen. And so I see this as filling that gap and broadening the community. I also get questions. We had one yesterday about, you know, who serves as a consultant. And my usual answer is I do mention 406 agronomy, but it's also, you know, identifying farmers in the area and passing on their contact information. So I see this as filling a tremendous gap.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that is I honestly the basis of the entire formation of this group, that there's a lot of great farmers doing great work, but not a central housing of that information. And I think it's, you know, in a way, a two-way flow for the universities also kind of not having a great way to access in-time information of what's going on in the field. necessarily. So I think that could serve as a point as well. Mallory, would you bring up that question slide one more time?
Yes. Bear with me just a moment.
Super. Yeah. And so I think we touched on this, but Jess or Jackson or John, have you guys used formal consultants on the organic side? And by formal, I just mean paid. Have you paid for agronomy advice? Or is that something that just hasn't really been offered as a resource to date? And anyone who wants to just jump in.
So this is John Wicks. I haven't used anybody, and I've kind of looked around a little bit, but there wasn't anybody really that specialized in what I was doing. And especially with like the cover crops and reduced tillage, there just wasn't a lot of information out there. So I had to do a lot of research on my own. And then through the processors, working with them, they've had kind of their own grower liaisons that have provided a lot of different avenues for information that I've used, but that's been about the extent of it. So I guess I've been trying to look at other areas and what people are doing that works, and then trying to adapt them to our growing season in our area.
Definitely. Where are some of those areas that you look to most commonly, would you say?
I've been looking to kind of the Midwest and the East Coast in Pennsylvania. I'd like to get a crimper roller, but first I need to be able to handle all the seeding that goes along with that. And so I've done some tests on different crops that kind of take the place of, cereal rye, and, just kind of tweaking those cover crop mixes for what grows well here.
Totally. No, that's huge, because that means that Rodale's impact is actually getting quite far out for that crimper roller. And and it'd be awesome. I agree to have that context-based, Montana-focused version of that kind of formalized, so we don't have to do quite as much experimenting if we want to adopt a practice. I think that's something that wasn't formally called out, but I know Timeless and I think Kamut for quite a while. And I don't know, Sam, do you guys also have what you would describe as kind of a formal liaison or agronomist? But I think that's you, right? Nope. Okay.
Yeah. No, we don't.
Okay.
I'm not much of an agronomist.
So Nate,
Yeah.
So interesting. I forget about Timeless having the agronomist there, but in the past 9 years, we've come across 4 consultants, and 3 of whom have not really understood or had any idea, or really even a good farm base. They were kind of fancy consultants. And this is just through that certification process, and only one of which really understood organics. So we haven't experienced that in-depth person whom I would really call, a well-rounded consultant. So
that is super useful. Yeah. When the consultants that you found, were they just conventional agronomists?
They were more specialized. One was definitely more organic certification period with some background. And the other 3 people hired, I feel, because they wanted someone to do their paperwork who had no knowledge. And so that word consultant, you might want to tweak that to have it have a deeper meaning, like a more production oriented meaning, versus somebody who's telling you how to do something in an aspect that's not what we are desiring. So
right. And I think that's a great point, and we'll take that for sure. The word consultant, we made it broad because we were looking for that. Generally, how are you accessing information on production? Of course, we're really diving into that production agronomist who's helping you with your cropping and decision making on the field level, rather than necessarily sort of paperwork and certification or accounting.
So obviously there's Joseph with Timeless.
And that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, as more of the consultant or the agronomist. Would you agree?
Well, and I don't have any idea. I don't even know what he's currently doing right now. But Wes Gibbs, I mean, he was kind of taking on that private contracting role for a while for organics, and I honestly haven't ran into him in a few months.
Yeah, either Sam or Jamie, when with Kamut, was Wes sort of in that role of farmers calling him up about, I've got a thistle problem, or I'm trying to figure out how to rotate, that kind of fielding those questions, if you know?
Yeah, probably the Kamut program, you know, they keep track of all of the data, and they have a dinner once a year where they do advise one another and look at what's worked and where it's working and how it's working. So yeah, and Wes was hired specifically in that role as a crop advisor.
Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was maybe once more affiliated with Kamut, or now he's more just an independent. Is that correct?
Yeah. With the problems with glyphosate, I think he took on a different role, but, and I haven't had an update from them in a while, but yeah.
I'm curious, from other farmers, Jackson, have you used consultants in the past, and what's your experience there?
Only with timeless seeds. So Joseph and Jim, they try to come out once a year, and I've spent a lot of time on the phone with them. Looking at this second question for access to technical advisory support, I've really found that I struggle with Montana State University to find the organic information I need to. I don't know if it's the way it's laid out or what it is. And I've had far better luck with Rodale Institute and specifically North Dakota State University. I get a lot of my information there. But as far as consultants go, no, I have not.
When you reach out to the folks at MSU, who do you typically talk to? Is it an extension agent or one of the agronomy professors?
Right, so it'd be the extension agents, and then mostly just trying to dig up information on their website. I think their website is hard to maneuver.
Yeah, definitely. And having a central place to house that information, I think, is also, you know, a really, I don't know if we'll necessarily become, you know, a library per se, but there's, I think, a lot of ways to organize this information better to make it more accessible to folks.
This is Craig Schmidt. The people I've talked to that had the best information come out to the field so far have been the Timeless Seeds, Joseph, and Jim, you know, the guy that is looking after the farmers, but also IND Hemp out of Fort Benton. They have an agronomist who's been very helpful, and they do both organic and non-organic. And then Gary Iverson over at Montana Gluten Free. He came out with one of the professors. His last name was Sands.
Yeah.
And he was actually out looking at my field with me, you know, kind of thing, and helpful. He's looking at the bindweed organic stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's been, honestly, as a farmer, my experience of it's a very difficult kind of set of information to tap in Montana. There's really smart people doing really great work. It's just identifying it in one central place and then having some sort of common experience in the training side of getting agronomists who are either extension agents or private agronomists who have had a consistent training in organic, so we don't run into that inconsistency that sort of Georgiana was describing with kind of a wild west of credentials trying to tap into assisting the organic market.
I'm going to jump in here too.
Yeah.
The research centers, you know, that's a good place to go as well, but that is a little more centralized per region. But I would agree there's still a need to have a place where you can find all of this.
And would that be like NCAT and?
Or no, like Western Ag Research Center in Corvallis and
Totally.
the
Yep.
Moccasin Center with Sydney Haver.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of the extension to learning and experiment stations for MSU system.
Well, yeah, and in fact, Corvallis reached out to me, and we had a session in November on certifying organic fruit, and that was them reaching out. So that was great. And part of it is one of the extension agents there has a lot of apple orchardists who are actually using organic methods, but they've never bothered to get certified because it's this Western Montana, Missoula, Bitterroot area. And so she was trying to convince them that they would, have a greater return for what they're doing if they bothered to get certified.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, the extension service in Corvallis has been really supportive of organic agriculture, and they've gone as far as to have some certified plots at their research facility down there. So just a shout out to them for sure.
Yeah, I think that Bozeman as well, has done quite a bit of experimenting. And I think that it would be tricky to necessarily access the results of those studies. And I think that's something that would also be really important to Oats, is figuring out how to better facilitate that transfer of information. And Mallory, just jump in for time if I'm running over or anything.
We're scheduled to go to 11:30. Well, I'm in Central Time, so 10:30 your time.
All good. Yep. So I wanted to really dive in, and this is a question for absolutely anybody, but a key, I think, question mark for me is, how do we get folks, what's the best way to get folks to learn about this agronomy information? And I think more targeted for the advice givers who would ultimately become agronomists in this work. And so we're developing training modules, much like where you'd have a lecture and then interactive activities. It's going to be a hybrid model. So we are going to try to have field days whereby we're able to get out and meet folks and get on the farm. But does anyone have any input on, how as folks currently and actively in the agronomy space, or in the organic agriculture space, how likely are you to sign up for a course, to access more virtual learning, to ultimately start to formalize the information that you would then become advice givers on? And jump in there as well, Mallory, for any specifics of kind of how we're gearing up to host these hybrid courses so we can better utilize this feedback.
Yeah, I guess I would maybe kind of, to put a finer point on the question, when you think about an online course, what turns you off? What is something that you would be a red flag, like, I'm not going to bother with this?
Well, Mallory, can I jump in here for a second? So before I was organic, we had to have a certain number of points every year in order to maintain our chemical license. Is there required continuing education for agronomists where this program could offer an incentive, offer points or what have you to incentive somebody to take it?
We're building toward that. It'll be some time before we have a program built up robust enough to do that, but that's where we're aiming. So our starting place is to start building our content for these lessons. And once we have a comprehensive, like, introductory course and we start having people move through that, then we plan to build out a credential program and points for continuing education and that kind of thing. I'm thinking that's probably about 2 years out before we have that formally launched.
Mm-hmm. And if I sort of understand that right, it would be that we have basically the cooperation with the American Agronomy Association.
Possibly. That's something that we would love to investigate, but that's not something that we have acted on yet. Sure,
but I think it's a great point, Jackson. I think that's definitely a way to get our foot in the door with folks who might not otherwise be exposed to organic agronomy for sure. And
I'd be pretty interested in, following up with that and taking some more. I get a lot of calls from people that are interested in organic that just don't fully understand everything they have to do. So it'd be good for me to have a little more solid background in some of these things, and then information for myself as well. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the idea for sure. And so for you, John, as if you were sort of to jump into that advice giving space, what's the way, what would either encourage or discourage you from accessing these courses?
I actually think for me, online is, that'd probably be the way to go, because I'm so busy on the farm and then doing some of these other things. It's hard to drive somewhere and attend a couple day course or whatever. So the online, I think, would be best for me, but and I don't mind going in person either. It's just sometimes it's a little easier to hop on once a week than it is to knock it out at once.
Definitely. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So I'd like to jump in. So, we're living in this virtual world now where like come the middle of March, everything was like, and now you're on Zoom for 8 hours a day. Now that y'all are spending more time with like online things, what's working or what's not working in terms of your experience with learning through a virtual conference format? What have you liked? What have you not liked?
I'll jump in here with so virtual events where there's not a dialogue like this happening get old really quick. But when you're actually interacting, and I think part of that is having a smaller group is one of the keys.
Definitely. Yeah.
This is Jess. Yesterday the cows got out, so I missed the Becky Weeds talk. I think at night is better for me. Things happen in the daytime, and in the dark, they happen. You don't worry about it, I guess. They don't usually get out in the dark. I don't know why, but they don't.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Last week, I really appreciated the fact I had signed up for an NCAT thing, which was at night, and they actually sent a reminder. I can't remember how many hours before. And unfortunately, I still did forget. And so I don't know what it takes on that. And it's not like, you have it on your calendar and everything. So there's got to be a balance when those night things come up that you don't get distracted. I guess I'll put it that way. But I did like that reminder, and it was really close to the time. So it worked well. So.
What do you think about having a text reminder? Like an actual text message goes to your phone. It would have to be an opt-in thing, like when you sign up that you could like consent, because I absolutely hate unsolicited text messages that are like advertisements. But for something where it's a big course that you've signed up for, and it's say one evening a month for 7 months that you have these meetings, to get a text message an hour before to go, hey, it's tonight. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be really good. I like those reminders as well. And sometimes you're in the shop and you just get going on something, or somebody pops into the yard and wants to visit, neighbors, and kind of forget. But if that would be to come up early, I got to go. I got something to do, and with enough time to get up to the house.
So the way that we are anticipating that we'll deliver our content primarily is through video lessons that people would watch on their own, like on their own time. And so we plan to go out with a video crew onto working farms, film footage, and then edit it together into these really tight, really clear, small, like 5 to 7 minute lessons. I'd love to hear some reactions to that. What are your thoughts on whether you would find short video lessons engaging have any of you experienced a course like that?
Well, I feel like attention spans are getting shorter every year, and I know mine is. So I think a short video would be helpful.
Good to hear.
Doesn't the scientific statistics tell us that people's concentration point is only about 30 minutes anyway? Isn't that about correct?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Heard that.
I was going to say that the e-organic series has been pretty successful. Are you guys familiar with that?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that the sort of format you're talking about?
Aren't theirs longer? Aren't they like?
Yeah, they're longer. They present a lot of research, but similar transfer of information, trying to disseminate research from the university to the public, to the users of that research.
OFRF has also put out a video-based education series that's targeted more toward farmers, and it's also broader. It's where our course is going to be specifically organic grain production. Theirs is more broad topic. I wonder how that is being received. Has anybody signed up for that course and taken it?
I have not personally, but I think that we could probably access that as well for folks who have taken it, and see and get some feedback on that, because I think that's a great jumping off point, Sean, of sort of the versions of this education that's existed before, seeing what has turned people on or off about it. I like the idea of the short modules, just as someone who kind of organizes information in my own learning, as a place to reference back to. And so I don't have to skip through a bunch of content to try to figure out what was that piece that I had a question on or wanted to access again. So breaking it up into those condensed lessons for me seemed like a way to more easily process the information and have it kind of pre-organized for learning.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to like farm YouTube videos, people, they will watch, 5-7 minute videos, but not a 15-minute video or, not an hour long one, but they'll sit at their computer for hours watching the little segments.
But great point.
Amazing. It's like you could spend cumulatively more time than the one longer video would be, but having that autoplay go, the next one's coming. Oh, I'm curious. I gotta do that. I'm curious about value. So building this course is quite expensive. We're going to be doing it in 5 different regions. We're going to have a film crew on, out in the field. And so I've been thinking through what it would be reasonable to charge for taking a course like this. What would be included is essentially 6 in-person field days over the span of 12 months, 3 at the beginning, 3 at the end, and then 7 modules worth of really highly produced, high quality content, plus the meetings with the instructor and conversations that happen between sessions. I'm curious, what do you think a course like that would be? How much a registration fee what price range would be reasonable?
I think first you're going to have some type of an intro so that people are going to get to be drawn in by this quality piece that they're going to listen to as a free portion, and then have them enabled to sign up thereafter. And I don't know what a price would be. Maybe that first one could have a questionnaire of how much would you be willing to pay, which of course you could get a whole range of answers, but that you might find a middle point there.
I think too, we've already just reeled off a lot of video resources that are out there, but I think the value that can be added to something like this is developing a cohort, a network within a region. And so I don't want to say it's a branding in a sense, but developing those relationships. And so that it's not so anonymous with doing your studies, but you're actually connecting with other folks in the state who are doing similar, or in the region doing similar things.
Yeah.
Who are like Georgiana and buyers and connecting them that way.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That is one of the elements of our plan. I used the word cohort in the presentation, but I didn't really hone in on that we want to be fostering those working relationships. And so when we run this course, we're going to have the sign up period, and then that closes, and the people go through the course together, though you're learning the lessons at your own pace because you have access to the modules and you watch them when you want to. There's meetings that the cohort comes together via Zoom and discusses the content periodically, plus those in-person meetings. So we really want to be fostering that network within the region.
I really like the idea of an alumni meeting every MOA, so that we have your class get together, but also that formalization of an advice giving community. How can farmers be better served, and what are the needs as this matures, and folks get trained, but then ultimately keep up that networking, so that we don't have folks operating in vacuums.
You know, right now we're kind of exploring like the business model of this course, but one of the things that I've been hearing from working agronomists and consultants who are doing work in the organic sector is they're struggling with what their business model is. You know, in the conventional sector, the business model is sale of product, right, and the consulting is free, yep, to the farmer, although it's not free. You know, it's priced into the product, but for the farmer, they're not paying for the time of the advisor. And in organics, if you're doing organics really well, there's very limited opportunity for selling inputs. You know, you want to be fostering this closed loop system, nutrient cycling within your farm. And so, yeah, I think that's a benefit that we could provide, is creating this network of people who are working in this industry that can help each other figure out how to serve farmers and to make it work for them through designing a business model together.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I think that's, and I think I chuckle because I think that's partly the reason the agronomy scene is so poorly developed in organics, is because there's not a clear pathway to monetizing that advice giving. And so I think a lot of buyers have just sort of built it in as something that they need to do, like Wes Gibbs or like Joseph with Timeless. But it would be, I think, yeah, a great opportunity to expand that understanding of how do folks reasonably make a living providing information. All right. Could we pull up that slide one more time, Mallory?
Yeah.
Keeps getting kicked off on mine. Well, I think we did, on the whole, move through the questions. Did you have anything that you wanted to hone in on anymore, Mallory?
We've pretty much covered all the things that I had hoped to discuss. I really am so grateful for all of you, you know, providing your thoughts and your time here and listening to what Oats is developing. And I want to strongly encourage you to reach out if you're not already, you know, on our committee. If you're interested in, you know, learning more about the program as it's developed and launches, we're hoping to start advertising our first cohort applications come late spring, early summer. And so we'll be hosting, you know, COVID conditions pending, our 3 in-person training events to kick off in the Rocky Mountain West region this summer. And then the fall and the winter of this coming year, the modules will be made available to that first cohort. Yeah, so our contact details are on here. Please feel free to reach out, and we will keep in touch with you. And I want to open it up for the group. Any final thoughts? Anything you want us to know so that we can make this program work for you and your region?
One thing I would just pose real quick to everyone is, if you do have, even if you are an advice giver or know of someone who might benefit from being kind of in that early class, who are accessing these trainings, it'd be great to identify those for us or have them contact us. Because anyone who's tangential to organics, maybe they're not really comfortable with giving advice on organics yet, but have an interest, know organic farmers. I think that's sort of the first class that we really love to scoop up and figure out how to get this rolling. And so anyone that you can think of who wants to be involved, learning about organics and advice giving, please shoot them our way.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mallory, and for all the work you've done. And thanks, Nate, for leading us down this path. And I look forward to really good things coming out of this. So thanks, everyone, for attending. Our next session is at 11, and it's Introduction to the Organic System Plan. And then there is another session this afternoon on organic standards and inspection and certification. So if you did not get an invitation to those and would like to attend, please let me know. So thanks, everyone. And this recording will be up probably later today. So have a good day.
All right.
So
Thanks,
thank you all so much, and keep in touch with us. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.